So it all started off when I had this severe skin condition called psoriasis, and a lot of these doctors said that it was not curable. It's an autoimmune condition, so they all said that it is something that I have to live with for the rest of my life, and so on. And me being a young adult at the time, I was like, there has to be another way. And I was training to be a hypnotherapist at the time. And it was purely out of curiosity because education and professionally, I was a marine engineer. It was, my family business and all of that had nothing to do with mental health. But I was always interested in psychology. So when I had started working in that job, with the family business and so on, I absolutely thought it was so dead. There was no passion, there was no aliveness. I didn't feel like I was contributing in any way. So just to get out of that boredom, I was like, okay, let me do something about the mind, and it was purely out of curiosity. So while I was doing that, I also had these skin conditions. So I just thought to myself, okay, the best way to test if this works, if any of this mind-body connection works, is to just apply it on myself. And that's when I did, and through these mind sciences, I managed to completely cure my psoriasis. When we're talking about pitta, as human beings, if you look at our day, we sleep, we have the basic animalistic human needs, which is to survive, and we do that by eating, by going to work, and doing whatever we need to do. But in addition to that, we have a tendency to also just get sucked into that routine, but we don't really look at the micro level of things that can happen on a daily basis, weekly basis, that contribute a lot. And this can be your physical health, that is one area. You have your finances, that's another area. You have your social life, that's another area. You have your spiritual life, that's another area. So it's split into all these 8 different categories, and the whole idea is, how do you look at your life through these 8 lenses? And the best way to do it is, today you can just sit down and just rate yourself from 1 to 10 on all these different areas. And it can be 2, 3, 4, 8 out of 10 in many areas. It doesn't matter. Now, once you plot it on a graph, if you can plot it into a circular graph, and you'll see that it's all zigzag. Now the idea is, on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, on a yearly basis, you are trying to expand this graph by improving all these areas of your life, trying to get it as close to 10 out of 10. So it is believed that the minute you get it, or you work on improving these areas of your life, you will naturally feel a lot more fulfilled. The most common thing that I've seen in my practice is everything literally comes down to your self-worth. The minute you are able to be at peace with who you are and come into acceptance of everything that has happened, you will see that your ability to manage your emotions become a lot easier. Because if you really understand any issue that we have on a day-to-day basis, it's either of issues of the past or issues that will come in the future, or anxieties of the future. So if we are struggling with our self-esteem or our image or so on, it's because we've had experiences in the past that has made us believe a certain way or look at ourselves in a certain way. Or we have certain goals and aspirations for ourselves of the future that we would like to achieve, and the fact that we don't have it, we have this deep desire for it and we can't attain it, that causes some kind of pain. So it's a constant battle between where I was, what I want to be, and both of them link into the way we perceive ourselves. And to be honest, if I would say almost 99% of the issues that I've seen comes from that. Fear of failure is one of the core issues of procrastination. And if you tend to procrastinate, it is either because of fear of failure or fear of success even. Yeah, because if I were to tell you that, let's say for example, you are going to win $1 million tomorrow, okay? You do this and you'll win that $1 million. Now, if you, in your experience, if being rich means you have to provide for your family and it's hard for you to say no, you will find ways to not be rich just so that you can avoid saying no. So even if you want that success, because it is tied to something that you don't want to do or something that pains you, you will avoid that success even though it's logical. So fear of failure is the exact opposite of that, which is purely a byproduct of your conditioning when you were raised. So which means how were you, what's your association with achievements? Which means growing up, if you were celebrated for being the first in class, for getting 100 out of 100, and the minute you got less than that, you didn't get anything of that. So your association to achievement and what that does to you internally, that is what creates the fear of failure. Because if that validation is so important to you, it can almost be life-threatening or like perceived, even though you're not going to die, but perception-wise, you can perceive it as, oh my God, if I don't do this, I might even die, kind of. That language that you use as well, it's so important. But yeah, you see this a lot, because if you even look at the culture that we're in right now, and if you look at social media, look at how technology is even wired. Everything is so quick, everything is easy, everything is like quick, snap, and things are almost given to you in a platter. You want to order food, Deliveroo gives it to you in 20 minutes. So everything is so tailored around your desires and how quickly you can get it, that when it comes to certain things that require perseverance, that requires patience, that requires hard work, it is so easy for individuals to get trapped in that train of fear of failure, that it can be quite detrimental to their own mental health. So I would say the best way to integrate it into your fast-paced life already is not to, realistically, reducing things in your day is probably not possible, because things, you will need to keep doing more things depending on the kind of role that you do. If you're a mother, entrepreneur, having 3 jobs, it's so ideally cutting down is not the way. However, how you do the things you do can be the key to it, because it's all about grounding, which means you can be doing a million tasks, but just by grounding yourself in that moment, and what I mean by grounding is being absolutely present while you're doing it, just in that activity can bring in a lot of balance. So one is the practice of presence. I want to say practice because it is not something that everybody is born with based on how things are. It is learning how to be present. The second is what helps you being present is time management. So learning how to manage your time, and you can manage your time better when you know how to plan. So planning in advance, that would literally mean if you need to do X, Y, and Z today, doing it the night before and having that daily plan, the monthly plan, weekly plans, setting targets. So just having a plan is so important for your time management, for your ability to be present. And the last thing I would say is to, and it's all interlinked, because it will all come down to how restful you are or how rested you feel every morning you wake up. Which means, and this is kind of controversial because you will hear a lot of resources on this where people say you need 8 hours of sleep, you need X 9 hours of sleep. But I truly believe it's not about the number of hours, but it's with whatever time you are sleeping is how restful you are when you come out of it. So which means you can literally sleep for 6 hours and feel as restful compared to sleeping 8 hours. Now, let's say if you were sleeping 8 hours a day, and then during the day you manage little things, you manage what you eat, you manage how you're thinking, how balanced you are, you add little biohacking techniques that help you reduce that 8 hours to now 6 hours. You're able to get 6 hours and you're feeling super rested. That's 3 hours extra in a day. So 3 hours, that's 21 hours in a week. That's almost a one whole extra day that you're getting in a week.
Wow.
So it's learning how to find more time in a day, and you can do that by hacking your health, by hacking your sleep. And you can only hack your sleep if you are able to be a lot more at ease and not all over the place. Because the more active you are in your mind, the more sleep that you will need. But the more present you are while you're doing 10 activities, the less stress you have. As a first protocol, I would definitely advise seeking professional help, just so you know how bad it is or where you are at, so there is a lot of clarity. The second thing, if it's chronic or not, that is what I mean. See, so depending, if it's chronic, you would need medication. You would need, I would never advise against it. If it's not chronic, if you have the ability to opt for an option that does not require medication, then know that if you're dealing with depression, it's a dissociative disorder, which means you are completely detached from the body. So bringing in a lot of grounding to your day, to yourself, is so important. How do you ground? You need to do activities where you are in contact with the floor. And that can be walking, jogging, where there is a constant pounding or a force on your vertical spine. So that can help bring in a lot of grounding for people with depression. Even writing. So when you're writing about, you are activating about 95% of your neurons. So that is using your physical body. So that is bringing presence back into your body. So that is what I would recommend initially for a good period of time, in addition to sessions with your psychologist or your therapist or your mental health coaches, whoever it is that you go to. Secondly, for anxiety, for people with anxiety, dissociation will be a natural byproduct, but they feel it. It's almost the opposite, which is they feel everything in their body, which means they are so in tune with the dysregulation of the nervous system that they are unable to cognitively think or critically think. So like I said, if like we said earlier about okay, if I don't do this, then I would die. Critically or logically, that is not going to happen. But because the anxiety is so deep in the physical body that you are not able to think beyond the logic. So this is what anxiety does to you. So people who suffer with anxiety, the best tool, apart I'm not gonna count medication, the best tool is breath work. Breath work allows you to regulate your nervous system. The minute you are able to regulate it, the anxiety is absolutely going to go down. Even more importantly, how you breathe, because a lot of people don't understand this as well. So when you think of breathing, people, you probably have an image of someone going now, what are you doing here? You're taking shorter breaths, but even more importantly, shorter exhalations. When you decrease the length of your exhalation, you activate your sympathetic nervous system. Now that increases your anxiety. The trick is to make your exhalations longer. The minute you exhale longer, it activates your parasympathetic nervous system, which is what you need to calm down your anxiety. So exhaling for long, holding your breath, these are things that actually help with anxiety. So whenever you have anxiety, it's just think about making your exhalations longer. So we don't realize how much memory we carry within our DNA that's been passed down from generations to generation. So every mole in your body is a memory that is passed down from generation. You will not have a single mole in your body that doesn't have a deeper meaning, that doesn't have a story behind it. So everything that you carry, the way you react, how easily you are triggered for something, it's purely based on memory. So for instance, if your grandfather has gone through war, okay, and you know your parents have lived through it and you have lived through it, and let's say you don't even know your grandparents, because you come from your grandparents, that memory is still very present, and this is done through research as well. So which means even if you now live in a very safe environment, just watching a video of a war scene or something that's as traumatic as what your parents or grandparents went through can create a reaction in you that's very different from someone who's never had any exposure, or whose parents or grandparents have never been exposed to war. And this is purely because of what is ingrained in you. So we are not aware of so many things that we carry, and this can come down to abandonment issues. They can come down to shame and guilt. I've seen this a lot in women. So especially in cultures where there is a lot of shame and guilt revolving around marriage, sex, around their bodies, and you now then look at the women in that generation, and then you look at their relationships and issues that are repetitive. It is not a surprise that they have that, because it has been passed down through generations. So the best way to identify these generational traumas is by looking at patterns. If you've seen that you are having relationship issues, and perhaps your mom is having relationship issues, and perhaps your grandmom is having relationship issues, it would be a good way to ask yourself, how much of what you are experiencing is yours, or how much of it is what you're experiencing is something that you've carried subconsciously from your mom and your grandmom, because it is done out of pure loyalty of blood through memory that we don't even think about. Because if we were to be different, it's going against the system. It's almost like being disloyal.
But do you think it's possible to break out of that generational trauma and break that cycle?
100%, and that can only come in through awareness. Because once you can see it, you can choose differently. It is no longer done subconsciously. The problem is when you can't see it, because then your choices are not different. If you probably have heard stories or maybe know people or even experienced it yourself, where you let's say you grew up watching your parents hypothetically go through a horrible marriage and they're fighting all the time, and now you are in a relationship and your relationship resembles just like that, and logically you know that I don't want to have that relationship, but somehow you've attracted a partner, you're in a relationship that resembles just like your parents'. So it shows you how much control or how little control we have on a day-to-day basis of who we are, because a lot of it is done through programming of what we've seen, what we've heard, how we've been wired. And the only way we can change that is through awareness. And the only way you can get awareness is through self-reflection, which many people can do themselves, or through external help, like going through a therapist or so on. Now more than ever, there's been an uprise in men, for lack of better terms, I would say getting more in touch with their feminine energy. So everybody has both feminine and masculine energy. So this ability to be vulnerable comes from the ability to respect, accept the feminine side. And I would say this is a natural byproduct of women getting in touch with their masculine side. You know, so I would say it's like one cannot exist without the other. So the very fact that women are now able to, break a lot of barriers and so on is because for so many years they have been suppressed. There have been opportunities that have not been in place. So they had to tap into their masculine energy. And there is a rise in women tapping into their masculine energy. Naturally, the toxic masculinity goes down because now there is room, or there is no need for that, or there's no space for that. Therefore, there's more space for men to explore their feminine energy. So this does not mean femininity is weak or bad or nothing like that. It's just a different nature, which is a more self-reflective, which is more of, rather than do, there is more of rest, there is more of pause, there's softness that allows adaptability, which wasn't there back in the day, which means this stigma around men need to be this, or men needs to be strong, men need to be they can't vocalize their emotion, that the need for that has gone down, and it's very the authenticity is respected in this current day and age, and that does leave room for a lot of men to be very vocal about their mental health, and I think the need, and it's very interesting because the need for that can only come in through relationships, either relationships with your partner, relationship with your family, and so on. And you can only ever learn to be a better person through your individual relationships with other people. It can never ever be a solo journey. I would say a good approach would it be, rather than focusing on, okay, there's a problem that I need to fix, what about there's how do I be better? Or how do I, okay, the relationship is great, how do I make it better? You know, you don't necessarily need to have a problem to go to a therapist. You can literally go to a therapist to just be better, just to have clarity.
To make it part of your life. Right?
To make it part of your life. For instance, and this is the funniest thing is, you don't ever go to a gym instructor when you're, let's say, overweight and say, oh, I need to lose weight tomorrow. You will actually give yourself months, days, years to be okay with it. Why would you not have that same approach to mental health? You know, so let's say if you had something wrong with your arm, your foot or something, you would go to a specialist. Why wouldn't you have the same for the way you think? Because it doesn't happen overnight. It is a byproduct of years of conditioning. So to dewire that, it will take time. It will take that kind of attention and focus. So logically, when you look at it, it is not anyone's fault. It is not a default. It is a byproduct of your environment, of your conditioning, your choices.